Welcome to Crimes After Dark by Asher Dawn. Here we don't just retell crimes for shock value, we reveal the hidden dangers inside them, and we turn those lessons into survival tools. Because the truth is, evil doesn't always wear a mask or skulk down dark alleys. Sometimes, it trims its hedges in broad daylight. Sometimes it waves from the front porch. Sometimes it lives right next door. Tonight's story proves exactly that. If you stay with me until the end, you'll not only hear one of the most haunting suburban nightmares in American history, but you'll also learn how to spot the subtle cracks in someone's mask before it's too late. These safety tools could one day save you or someone you love from danger you never saw coming. So let's begin. Wichita, Kansas, a city that prides itself on quiet neighborhoods, modest homes, and people who know their neighbors. In the 1970s, it was the kind of place where kids rode bikes until the streetlights came on, and families left doors unlocked, trusting in the safety of their cul-de-sacs. And living among them was Dennis Rader. At first glance, there was nothing remarkable about him. A married man with 2 children, the type who worked steady jobs, attended church every Sunday, and volunteered as president of his congregation. He even worked as a city compliance officer, the guy who'd tell you to trim your lawn or move your car if it violated city code. Strict, sure, but normal. If you had lived in his neighborhood back then, you might have waved to him, maybe borrowed sugar, maybe even asked him to keep an eye on your house while you went on vacation. But behind that quiet, ordinary exterior lived a storm. Dennis Rader was BTK, a serial killer who stalked, bound, tortured, and murdered. And for 3 decades, no one suspected the man who seemed so ordinary. It started on January 15, 1974. The Otero family. That morning, Wichita was blanketed in cold air. The Oteros, a warm, close-knit family of 6, were beginning their day like any other. But Dennis Rader had already chosen them. He slipped into their home with a kind of calm most of us can't comprehend. There was no rush, no frenzy, only control. He tied them up one by one, father, mother, children, ignoring their pleas, silencing their cries. Then came the torture, the strangulation, the calculated extinguishing of life. When it was over, the Otero's home, once filled with laughter and the chaos of children, was silent. Their bodies lay bound and BTK, his first act complete, vanished into the morning air. The city was shocked. Police were baffled. Families panicked. But Dennis Rader, he simply went home. He ate dinner with his wife. He tucked his kids into bed. And he smiled. And this right here is where the first lesson hides. Evil often doesn't scream at you. It whispers, blends. It performs normal, so convincingly that you ignore the unease in your gut. So if you take anything from this so far, let it be this. Never ignore your instincts. If a person's smile feels wrong, if their kindness feels rehearsed, if your body tenses around them even though they've done nothing, that's not paranoia. That's survival. Trust it. Rader continued. Victim after victim. He stalked women, watching their patterns, memorizing their routines. He slipped into homes like a shadow, tying his victims with ropes, savoring their fear. He signed his work with 3 letters: BTK, Bime, Torture, Kill. And while police scrambled, Dennis lived his double life seamlessly. On Sunday mornings, he prayed in church. On weekday evenings, he attended Boy Scout meetings with his son. On weekends, he mowed his lawn. His neighbors thought he was meticulous, maybe a little stern, but harmless. Nobody saw the monster, because he didn't look like one. By the 1980s, Wichita was no longer the same. Women triple-locked their doors. Parents taught children not to answer knocks from strangers. Men checked windows before bed. Yet BTK remained a ghost. No face, no trace, only fear. And Dennis, their neighbor, their friend, smiled as the city trembled. And if you're here with me so far, if this story already has your skin crawling, make sure you subscribe right now. Because on this channel, we don't just tell the horror, we arm you with the awareness that can keep you safe. Don't miss the next survival tool. What made Dennis Rader dangerous wasn't just the killing. It was the performance, the mask of normalcy. He wasn't a man foaming at the mouth or screaming in public. He was the man who held doors open, who nodded politely at the grocery store. That's why this story matters. It forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Predators don't always look like predators. Sometimes they look like neighbors. One chilling example. After murdering a woman named Catherine Bright in 1974, Dennis returned to his family life without skipping a beat. When his co-workers asked what he'd done that weekend, he shrugged. Just chores. Think about that. Hours after tying up and killing a young woman in her own home. He was back at the office, chatting about paperwork and the weather. This ability to compartmentalize, to switch between killer and family man, is what allowed him to hide for so long. And it's what makes him so terrifying. Here's another lesson. Watch for people who crave control, even in small things. Neighbors later remembered how Dennis would cite people for minor violations with almost obsessive zeal. He wasn't just doing his job, he enjoyed it. He relished the power of making others squirm under his authority. That's a red flag in life. When someone delights in control, punishment, or humiliation, it might look small, nitpicking over enforcing rules, joking about dominance. But for some, that seed grows into something much darker. By the mid-1980s, BTK faded from headlines. Police had no leads. The public, though still fearful, slowly let the horror slip into the background. But Dennis never stopped fantasizing. He collected souvenirs from his victims. He wrote detailed accounts of his crimes for his own twisted pleasure. He dreamed of killing again. And for nearly 20 years, he lived quietly among his neighbors, waiting until 2004. 30 years after his first murder, BTK resurfaced. He began sending letters to the press again, taunting, bragging, almost daring the police to find him. And that arrogance, that hunger for recognition, would become his undoing. Because in his final letter, Dennis Rader made a single mistake. One tiny error that would shatter his carefully constructed mask, and finally reveal the monster hiding behind the neighbor's smile. And in the next part, we'll uncover how that slip exposed BTK, and what you can learn from the decades of silence that kept him hidden. Thanks for watching. If you stayed to the end, it means this story hit you hard. So please subscribe right now to get notified when we drop the next part. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who cares about safety, and leave a comment with your thoughts or any stories you'd like us to cover. See you on the next one.